actually took these images. There was a photo challenge. It was an international photo challenge, and you would sign up, and they gave you 5 prompts that you had to have, and you had to work those into your images. You had 36 hours to take your images, edit them, and submit them. And my mom was just leaving Bastion Place. She'd been there for 6 weeks after falling and breaking her knee, and we weren't sure if she would ever be coming home, so it was a big deal that that she was going to get to come home back to my dad. And I decided to use that day to document her coming back home. And it was a big push, but I needed that push to break through some barriers for me. So I printed the images that I felt sort of told the story of that day the most, and also the story of what their life is right now. When you age, it's not always pretty or graceful. It's busy, and there's lots to consider, and there's prescriptions, and there's doctor's visits, and there's appointments all the time, and it's complicated, but there's still a beauty in it that people can see if they want to, and so that's what I was trying to see. But yeah, I just wanted to show the real life that it looks like for them. When it came to choosing how to display the image, I know that in our house, as the same as most houses, all of your pride and joy sort of gets put on the fridge. That's like the place where you want to have photos and awards and all kinds of important information. It's sort of the center of your home. You're in and out of that fridge hundreds of times a day if you've got kids like mine. So displaying the things that I care about the most on a fridge just seemed really important. And then when we're talking and thinking about our climate change, my parents' life is changing a lot faster than I want. And there's this permanence of the things that we buy that are going to outlast the people that are in our lives. So having, an old fridge door from probably somewhere in the 80s, which looks almost identical to the fridge that my parents have out on their back porch, it seemed really fitting to have that contrast between the permanency of the things that we buy and the people in our lives who are not going to be with us forever. For climate change, I think we see it all the time. We see it all around us. It's forest fires, and it's the pollution in our lakes, and it's our social climate, it's our world, it's the packaging that we have around us all the time. I don't think you can avoid seeing it. I think we're surrounded by it so much that you can't really get away from it, which can make it really overwhelming to think about how we change that at the same time, because it's everywhere, and it's everything that's around us. So it's a really big topic, and it's a really big concern, but it's so big that it's really hard to address sometimes. I think the first time I became interested in photography, I was looking through my dad's dresser drawer, and I found his old Minolta and all of these photos, and I was curious about how it worked and how it came to be, and how the images were so different than things that I had seen other people take. And just realizing that the gear that you have and the type of camera that you can have more control, and you can actually create images rather than just take a picture of what's in front of you, but you can have some creative control over it, and I was fascinated by that, and that's where it all began. So he wasn't a photographer, he was a welder, and he spent his days fixing logging trucks in the bush and coming home dirty, and photography and artistic things wasn't really a part of his life. So it was so interesting to see that difference between how I saw him as my dad and this other side of him, and these drawers full of pictures of flowers and plants and raindrops and things. So yeah, I'm always taking photos. Even when I don't have my camera with me, I drive down the road and I'm like, I'm thinking about how I would take that photo of whatever scene that I'm seeing. So I'm looking at that all the time. So it can be really hard to not take photos as well. So I've been working really hard on that the last little bit to just, it's okay to not document everything. I'm allowed to just work when I want to work and document my life when I want to and say no when I want to. So that's been a big step. I think my creative process has really changed over the year depending on what I'm doing for photography. I've done a lot of portrait work and a lot of weddings in the past, a lot of boudoir. So switching to documentary has been different. The process is a lot different, and if anything, it really makes you slow down and just wait. And you pay attention a lot more. So it's not the little things that you're looking for, like a hair out of place. It's the bigger scene and trying to capture who people really are and what they really do and what their habits are. And so you really need to slow down and pause and just wait for things to happen. And that can be hard in a really busy world. I shoot with Nikon gear. I shoot full frame D750s. I have quite a few prime lenses. I've got lots of zoom lenses. I also do a ton of sports work and sports action work, so I need to have a lot of zoom for that. When I do documentary work, I tend to shoot things pretty wide, so like 24 millimeters, sometimes wider, but yeah, usually around the 24 mark is where I do most of my documentary work. I've really fine-tuned my post-production, which is great. I have really fast culling software, so I can go through and I can find images that I can immediately relate to and decide if that's going to be a keeper or not. In documentary, you wait for the right framing a lot, and you wait for the layers to all be sort of separate. And sometimes you have to shoot through moments, and so you can have a lot of images. But I usually can make a very fast decision afterwards when I'm looking at the images, which ones I want to keep. And then I go through a second pass to find out the ones that tell the story the best. And then from there, there's a little bit of toning. I have to straighten every single image that I take because I take every image crooked. And then maybe some exposure and contrast, but I don't manipulate the images. So what you see is what you get. Yeah, so it's taken so much of my post-processing time and given it back to me in real life. So it's great. I'm going to tell you a little story. A few years ago, I helped out with a fundraiser, not a fundraiser, with an event where there was people who were battling cancer. Some of them were survivors, some of them were currently battling cancer, and we did like mini headshot sessions with them. They had their makeup done, and then the images went back to them afterwards. The one lady that I took images of, she had brain cancer. And I delivered the images back to the organization that was putting them on, and I didn't have her contact information or anything. So I passed off the images, the job was sort of done. I thought about it a lot, but I didn't really have any contact with her individually. And then a few months later, I got a phone call, and the lady on the phone said, "Did you by chance take photos of this woman, back in the fall?" And I said, "I did." And she said, I never received the images. I'm wondering like how I could maybe get them from you. And there had been some kind of a mix-up. The contact information wasn't correct, and so the lady hadn't got the images. It turns out she had passed away just several weeks after that. And when I talked to the daughter, she had been going through her mom's things and found my card, and that's why she thought she would follow up. So I met her in Vernon, in the parking lot of Value Village, and I gave her the package of prints. So I'd gone and got them from the organizer and gave her the package of prints. And she picked up the images and she held them up to her cheek. And so for that second, her mom was there with her. And I think that was one of the times where it hit me the most, how important it is to have that tangible, that thing that we can actually hold on to. Like so many people, my memory is something that you don't ever want to have because it's not there. And I always fear that I'm going to forget moments, and I'm going to forget things about my parents and things about my kids. But when I have that tangible thing, I can actually hold it in my hand, I can see it again. it makes me feel connected. It makes me feel close to them. And it happened with that lady. It happens with me all the time. And that's why I think it's so important to have real prints and not just images on a computer. It's really inspiring to be around other people that love photography but do it in such different ways as well. I think that's one of the things that I love the most about this area, is that there's so many artistic people and there's so many photographers, and everybody does it so differently, and I absolutely love that. So to be sharing space with all of these other people it's pretty amazing. Yeah, it's really inspiring.